Bueno, pues
Good morning once again. And after having these 3 days of presentations, very interesting and very content rich presentations, we're very, very happy with the outcome. And as our director, Juan Carlos Moreno, was saying in the beginning, we were sure that the jury didn't make any mistake, and your presentations were a proof of that. We have had 3 intense days of work, and right now we are going to wrap up. This is going to be like the icing on the cake. Professor Tajani was not able to be here, but he wanted to be here presently, but he's going to be with us online. Although we all know him and we know who he is, Professor Teresa Freixes, director of this course, is going to be in charge of introducing him um, before he addresses us his final remarks. And maybe we can make him questions. Okay, Teresa, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. President Tajani, it is a great honor to be in charge of introducing you in this course. I am very, very thankful to be given the honor of introducing you because for us, President Tajani is a role model from many perspectives and in many ways. And thanks so much for making room in your agenda to be with us online because knowing how big your role is in the European Parliament, I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to make room for us. So we are really, really thankful. President Tajani and has a very outstanding career. He has, and not only in politics, because he has been a journalist for over 20 years. He has been an Italian Air Force officer, and in Italian institutions, he has held many positions until he was chosen the president of the European Parliament. I want to highlight that he had been a member of the Convention on the Future of Europe. That convention through which we tried to have a constitution for Europe. And that constitution was so useful that virtually everything that was discussed in it has become part of the Lisbon Treaty. We must also emphasize that in 2018 he received the Charles V European Award, and that is why he chose the topic of this seminar, the principle of solidarity in the EU. It is very important to reflect on this, as we have been able to state during these 3 days of seminar. So thank you so much, President Tajani, for choosing this topic because it is decisive, especially in the times that we are living. In addition to this Charles V Award, I also want to recall that he received the Princess of Asturias that he received. That's when President Tajani defended the rule of law as a value of the EU for us as Spaniards and for me as someone from Catalonia and a European was very significant. We will always remember your words, and these words have always been a role model in all the discussions that we have had on the topic for many years. Having been supported by you and feeling that you were there during your years in Europe has always been a great support and a security valve in a way. We would always say, we have President Tajani with us, he will defend us, he will support us, and he will make Europe a Europe that is more integrated and more together from regions to states to the European level. He is currently chairing the conference of the President's Conference and Constitutional Affairs, as well as being a member of the delegation for relations with the US. Your work in that realm is also essential. We have been able to see that in this seminar. Right now, the traditional transatlantic access that we had with the US via the UK has disappeared. So we have to build it through the European Union. We have talked about that here. Yeah. We Spaniards share our language and many values with Latin American countries, so we need to promote that cooperation because also with the US we share these values. So we share values with Latin American countries and with the US. We're sorry not to have you here presently, face to face, but when our students send us their final texts and when we are able to publish the book that will be the outcome of this seminar, hopefully we will be able to introduce it with you in Rome. And it would make us extremely happy for this to happen because you, President, inspired us very much. This seminar is, in a way, your work, and it would be great to have you among us when this is presented to society at large. Thank you very much, President. It is a great honor for you to close this seminar. I will give you the floor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind words. It's a great honor for me to have you here and to be with you. Dear Director, Mr. Juan Carlos, dear professors, dear students, and dear friends. When we talk about the principle of solidarity, we have the duty to remember the principles that are the grounds of any integration process. I'm talking about social integration between humans. In this sense, Aristotle was the first one to claim that humans could not fulfill themselves fully unless they live in society. And a great Christian thinker, St. Augustine, said that life in community is the best way to live in order to pursue true happiness. Those teachings taught us that living in society, humans can benefit from economic, social, and human and political benefits, and the cancellation or breakage of life in society harms very much. Today, after the pandemic and the health protection measures that were adopted, we have lived for months lives with very little social contact. So we should have learned very well how harmful separation is in a community. In brief, community is a moral value, and for very pragmatic reasons. And the unity of Europe is also a value, particularly because the larger a society, the larger the benefits that it can receive from each of the human beings that compose it. For instance, if Italy or Spain had not joined the EU, many other citizens from member states would have not been able to progress. At the same time, without the next generation EU funds, Spain, Italy, or other member states could not benefit from the financial support of the European Union to relaunch investment and create jobs. In other words, solidarity is the cement of unity. That is the highest human feeling. And that conviction was also the seed of the European Union. And this was made possible thanks to the extraordinary political vision of people like Adenauer, Schuman, and De Gasperi. That is why, today more than ever, we have the duty before our children and grandchildren to go back to the original values that are at the core of the European Union. This is a process that we have to do both on a country level as well as a European level. To beat nationalists and populists, we must recognize what does not work in the European Union and be brave to change this. The financial crisis, unfortunately, doesn't leave us much time. So we need to act fast. For example, among other things, how can we compete culturally and economically with actors such as China, India, the US, and Russia without having a common defense? Uh, Truly common foreign policy, a common permanent debt, and without the parliament have its own legislative right? These questions make us realize that any response must be in line with broader unity and solidarity. Of course, always respecting local identities, but without destroying a political project that attempts to protect future generations. I believe in the Christian roots of Europe. I think in that sense, I also think that it is possible to work farther after Angela Merkel decided to leave her position in Germany. Spain and Italy must play a crucial role in the European Union. We must explain that Europe without a stable and strong Mediterranean is not possible. All countries that are fighting to achieve the independence of the European Union, they have no moral reason to do so. But in addition to that, they're acting against the principle of solidarity. I am committed, as the President of the Commission of Institutional Affairs of the European Parliament, I am committed to put in the agenda reforms as the right to have an initiative and the research of the European Parliament, the reform of the voting system in the Council, a new electoral or voting law that represents all Europeans and that strengthens the role of political parties. But we must also learn how to combine the struggle against climate change with the needs of companies and farmers. Our priority is to beat COVID-19. This is why it is increasingly important to build the Europe of health, reinforce the health strategy, because investing in health is to invest in our future. Thanks to the European Union and its vaccination strategy, we are the population in the world that has best protected its citizens. Over 70% are already vaccinated. 700 million doses have already been used in the European Union, but also the EU has offered 700 million to the rest of the world as testimony of our solidarity. We shall not be successful if we cannot accelerate this process on a world level. In Africa, Latin America, Asia. In Africa, the EU is investing 1,000 million euro to increase its capacity. In the EU, the COVID certificate passed by the European Parliament and the Council in 3 months has saved tourism this summer, allowing 400 million Europeans to go on holidays. We cannot deny the importance or the risks of the ecological transition and the digital revolution. We need strong investments to compensate those who are committed to being more sustainable. We need to protect jobs, recycle workers, and invest in research, training, and technologies to make Europe an example for others. Amazon, Google, or Facebook. Our strength is rooted in our economic independence. And to this end, we need to reform European bureaucracy, allowing small and medium-sized enterprises to access European funds. And we need to reform our competence system that has obsolete and old-fashioned rules. We must defend ourselves from the Chinese neocolonial expansionism. We need a strong Europe that protects the competitiveness of our economic system, and we need to be protagonists in the global chessboard. We need a European common military force that acts in synergy with NATO. We need a common defense, security, and migration policy. Spaniards and Italians must work to manage the situation of migration in a joint way with all other member states. Let's see what's happening in the borders between Poland and Belarus. We cannot allow human beings to be used as a means of geopolitical pressure. Last Tuesday, Frontex, the safeguard and border guards of the Union, published data on illegal entries to the European Union, and the figures are shocking. During the first 10 months of the year, there were only 8,000 entries to Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia. That's, well, the most common path is that of the central Mediterranean with 55,000 entries, followed by the Western Balkans with 48,500 people. The Western Mediterranean and Western Africa routes also became more intense. They grew twofold and twice as much as the Belarus borders. The challenge of migration is still in the Mediterranean. That's why we need a single policy for the Mediterranean and Africa. We cannot be and work by ourselves, and we cannot allow each member states to have their own politics for Africa. We need a common approach to address the challenges that we're facing in that continent. We need also a true Marshall Plan for Africa. We need to invest against illegal immigration, against climate change, to defend agriculture, to help small and medium-sized African companies. Furthermore, our two countries need to turn into the advocates of new policies in Latin America. We are connected culturally, religiously, and linguistically to that continent. A large number of Spanish and Italian companies operate in Latin America. Millions of South Americans have Spanish and Italian origins. It is necessary to change the direction, and Europe must be the priority partner for these citizens. We must make our common roots tangible and our common history. We cannot accept to see how Europe becomes a minor actor in the world map. In fact, we know how much we can contribute to the global well-being with our values, with the skills of our entrepreneurs and the knowledge in our universities. This is a role that we have. It's our role, and we can't delegate this role at all. This is, and to wrap up, I hope that we can be strong enough to leave a stronger Europe, a culturally and economically stronger Europe to the next generations. And if we have achieved this peace and coexistence, this is due to the King Juan Carlos and politicians like Adolfo Suarez and Felipe González, who were able to lead Spain to democracy, integrating it in the European Union. I want to thank all researchers who received this Antonio Tajani grant. Ruben, Marie, Pablo, Eva, Nuria, Isabel, Vanessa, Elena, Marco, and Patricia. You are the hope for a stronger Europe. You are the hope for a Europe that puts solidarity at its core. I want to wrap up with the same words that I stated in the Princess of Asturias Award in 2017. Long live democracy, long live Europe, long live Spain, and long live the King.
Muchas gracias por sus palabras, presidente. Pueden ustedes solicitar la palabra para sus intervenciones. Presidente Tajani nos hace el honor de poder estar un rato más con nosotros y contestar a lo que se le quiera plantear.
Claro que sí.
You can take the floor if you want to. President Tajani is staying up for a few more minutes and is happy to take questions.
Buenas tardes, señor Tajani.
Dear President Tajani, thank you very much. I would like to thank you for the opportunity you've given us to get closer to Europe with each of our pieces of research. It is true that, well, I didn't know that I could pose questions to you, so I'm taking this opportunity, and I wanted to talk about something that is related to my topic of research, the use of new technologies, because my research is about the use of new technologies and the link of that with technology and with solidarity. So, is the European Union going to make more protocols that regulate the use of technology in situations of catastrophe? Because we've seen the efficiency of this technology, but sometimes there is a lack of European framework to regulate it, or if there is one, it clashes with the national legislation. So the use of new technologies for a positive purpose are not being able to a full extent because the competencies of the member states are very limited, and they are an obstacle for using them fully. But they can help the civil population, especially when a fast response is needed. We've seen it during the COVID pandemic. All catastrophes do not respect the borders, and the emergency center that was created after the civil protection mechanism of the Union is good, but I'm reluctant to think that even if we have the technology and the tools and the instruments and the cooperation, we cannot use them in a more positive way because of bureaucratic obstacles. Europe is solidarity. Europe is all of us. Europe is also the civil population.
Sí, presidente, por favor.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes, you are right. I think much more can be done. So let's see what happens with the COVID pandemic. There are no borders for COVID. There are no barriers to COVID. That's why, since day one, I remember the February 18th, 2020, when I spoke to the European Parliament, I asked more cooperation. I asked for more cooperation between us, among us. I was asking for more joint efforts, both from a scientific and an organizational level. Because even if in the beginning Europe was not very fast acting, because we have those problems with the national competence, etc., but then Europe did very well. Once we found a common enemy, we acted in solidarity. And that is indispensable. It's not like you are not expressing your love for your country. No, it's that together we can defend our countries better. We forget about our flags. There is an Italian and a European flag behind me. But that flag without European flag would not be any stronger. That's why I insist on the need to work together, to cooperate together from a scientific, investment and strategic point of view. Because today is COVID, but tomorrow, who knows? There can be another invisible war. That's why I strongly agree with your position. We have to combat bureaucracy and red tape. We need to fight the small interests. I am an Italian. I am a European. I'm not less Italian because I am more European. No, we share the same flight. But we don't forget the national flags. We are all European. That's the real solidarity, and that's how we can better serve the European citizens. That's why I think your position is right and the most useful one. It's not a position against Italy or Spain. It is in favor of the Spaniards and the Italians and all Europeans. I think we have a couple more questions. You can take both questions together. Mr. President, thank you for being here with us today. This is an honor for us to talk about the principle of solidarity, the topic that you chose when you got the award. Where are you from? I'm from Colombia. My research in this seminar has revolved around the contribution of the European Union towards the peace-building process in Colombia and how that is a manifestation of the principle of solidarity. So these days we talked about it, but this solidarity principle not necessarily implies that the European Union is not benefiting at the same time from the cooperation relations. It's a win-win situation among states that share values with the European Union. As Professor Teresa Freises was saying a few moments ago, the transatlantic relations between the European Union and Latin America are broken, or Ibero-America in general. But my question is, what are the perspectives of the European Union? What does the European Union expect from those transatlantic relations, and how countries such as Spain and Portugal can become bridges of communication between the European Union and Ibero-America, and how that can strengthen the Europeanism? Thank you. And now the second question. I want to insist that it is an honor and a pleasure for us, and thank you for your virtual presence. We feel you very close to us. My question is about the subject matter I've used in my piece of research that you have mentioned, the Next Generation EU funds, and how the European Union decided this time to massively go to the international markets to fund the ideas that will pertain to that program, not just the health crisis, but something else to build a greener and more digital Europe. And you also mentioned an almost real possibility, a potential possibility that instead of issuing debt to the markets for just a few years, as we do now, we could do it for a longer time, so that Europe can grow at several levels, thanks to that collective issuance of debt. Thank you. Maybe there are more questions. Maybe we can take these two questions and then two more questions. I'll do it quick. Latin America. For me, Latin America is a priority. I did it when it was a priority when I was the president of the Commission, the president of the European Parliament. Why? Because transatlantic cooperation relations are critical, because we share common values. We share common values with you. all people in America, all Americas, the North and the South. We share values, we share common values, common languages, common religions. That's why Europe needs to do more. We cannot let you in the hands of the Chinese colonization, as they are doing in Africa. We are brothers and sisters, that's why, and I say it everywhere that I go, in Latin America and Colombia, of course, the development of Latin America, the use of all the raw materials that you have there could be a fundamental strategy to help all Latin America. Poverty is a problem today, but thanks to the work of a strong cooperation, poverty can be solved. There is a problem in your country, FARC, the terrorists in the northern frontier, in the northern border, but now you can defend democracy, you can build democracy, you can defend the lives of all these citizens. It is true, of course, that peace cannot just be peace, something written on a paper. It has to be a real peace. And Europe can do more by helping your country with strong ties with the rest of Latin America. I think both Portuguese, Italians, and Spaniards, all of them can be a bridge. We share a common mindset with Latin America. And with them, there are many Germans living in Chile, in Paraguay, but the Latin American countries can do more. Much more than what Europe can. We are the bridge, but there are 500 million Europeans that can always be better brothers and sisters. The intra-European relations are a great priority for me, and the relations with America. And I would tell this to my successors, to the people who will come after me. The next generation EU funds, on the other hand, are very useful, but they are just the beginning. But around it, around the interactions created by the next generation EU, we need to do reforms. If we do reforms, bureaucracy and red tape, of course, cannot be an obstacle for investment, because the changes and the infrastructures we can make thanks to the next generation EU funds can help create new investments, both in Europe and Americas, and the Americas. Even the United States can invest more in our countries if there is less bureaucracy, if there is a clear vision and a clear strategy. So the next generation EU funds are the beginning, not the end. So I agree with your vision. We need a strategy. Otherwise, we cannot use. We cannot use next generation EU for just more digital structures or to fight climate change. We need to do something else. We need to invest more to help the companies, both, well, even agricultural companies too, so that they can change. Because if we just put a list of objectives with no investment, that is the end of the industry and the agriculture. We need to invest, and we need to help the industrial businesses and the agricultural businesses. No money, no results. Goals and no money is a mistake. It's silly. It's just propaganda. But I do think that if Europe is to become a big continent and a political union with political unity, we need the leaders for that. I remember the Europe of Tony Blair, Barroso, Aznar, Berlusconi. That was very strong. Both the left and the right. We need the right political leaders. I am Italian, and I think of a European leader. So it's important that chiefs of state to do more. I think King Philip VI can be a good leader in Europe. He can do much for Spain, and he can be also one of the protagonists of Europe. If we do that, we can win that match and look forward to the next 50 years or so without much trouble, much concern. If we use the Next Generation EU funds just for small things, a strategy without a vision, we will lose the money and we have nothing left for our children. They won't have a better situation. Thank you for your quite specific and clear answers. Just 2 more questions, please.
Mr. President, thank you very much for being here. I'm also from Colombia, and the question that I was going to pose you already answered, but I want to ask you something else. Very briefly, do you think the EU could have a role as a multilateral role in South-South cooperation? Because you have had a long experience working with Africa, and those would be our allies in terms of history and the long history of conflict. You have worked with Africa for many years, whereas Latin America joined the agenda pretty recently. So could you please help us consolidate those economies and consolidate those bloc negotiations as a third ally that could serve as a bridge between Latin America and Africa? Good morning, and thank you very much for being with us here. For us, as my colleagues were saying, it's a great privilege. My question is connected to migrations and asylum. You talked about the figures of illegal entries in these past years, and you talked about the need to have a single policy, especially in the Mediterranean region. My question is, what do you think, what's your opinion about what will happen with the negotiations to have a new migration and asylum pact? Because as we all know, there have been different reactions from member states. There have been differences. And it seems like the negotiations are kind of in a stagnant point. So my question is, what's your view? What will happen? Will there be an agreement or not? Thank you very much. I'm going to answer very briefly. Let's start with the first question. Yes, Latin America is a priority, and there are many more things that we could do together. Second question. Africa. I think Europe can do much more in Latin America and also in Africa. If there is no strategy, we won't be able to solve the immigration problem. Latin American migration is very different because the integration of Latin Americans is easier. because of the language, the religion. There are issues, but the issues are not large. Migration from Africa. We have a legal and an illegal problem. We need agreements, but a real strategy is missing. What should be the strategy, in my view? Investments, a true Marshall Plan, 80-90 million euro to fight against climate change, in favor of economic development, education, research, infrastructures, joint ventures, European companies, African companies, raw materials, and also agreements with origin countries, source countries, to try to reduce migration. But without money, without any funds, we cannot win this battle. I think there is an opportunity with legal migration, because we are lacking workers. But education is important. It's important, the education of migrants from Africa. That's why agreements are so important. The fight against climate change is also very important. If we don't win this battle in Africa, the desert is eating away agricultural land. It's eating away the agricultural farming. As long as there is terrorism, as long as there are civil wars, so defending the borders is a short-term strategy, but we need long-term borders and long-term strategies. Otherwise, we will never solve the migration problem. Migration in the Mediterranean is very different from the migration in Belarus. Belarus is using the victims from the war to put Europe in trouble. Migrations from Africa are different. However, it's important to have a strategy. Defending borders, yes, it's important, but it's not the solution. It's a short-term solution, and short-term solutions are not winning solutions. What an honor, Mr. President, having you here with us. We have members of the seminars that come from both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. We have worked together, and we have worked on your proposal and following your initiative. So we really look forward to seeing you very soon if the conditions allow it. We are very, very happy and grateful for your contributions and for having the opportunity to be with you. Thank you, Mr. President. Let's wrap up this session.